On the day of Clover's funeral, Castle Everfree erupted in amazement. Celestia and Luna had held the procession of a portion of the grounds given over to the graves of ponies who had lived and died in the castle. The ponies who followed wept openly. Among them, the remaining 5 founders walked and flew, each wearing a similar expression of loss. They all liked Clover, even Hurricane, who famously didn't like anyone. She flew haughtily alongside Pansy, who had risen up to the Pegasi ranks over the few years, but still deferred to her old superior when they were together. Platinum walked beside her son, eschewing his support in public, while Puddinghead and Smart Cookie plodded creakily along with Earth Pony Technacy. The years showed that most in them, yet they refused to be carried as they followed their old friend to his final resting place. Clover had been blamed for viewing over past days, would be now given a proper prior. His remains would soon be interred in the very heart of the county he had helped and found. Celestia and Luna had commissioned the monument to be built when the castle itself was raised, thinking that someday the 6 founding ponies deserved something special to mark where they lay. Neither princess had imagined such a day would come too soon, nor that it would be Clover who fell first. Smart Cookie had broken down when she lumbered into the lit viewing room. "'Twas intended for me or mine to die first, an old friend," she had sobbed. "I did expect 5 tears at my funeral, not mine at thine." Puddinghead had not sobbed, for perhaps the first time in his life good humor had deserted him. He had stood beside Smart Cookie and rubbed her croaked back as she cried enough tears for them, both of them. Now he walked beside her, his expression one of bewilderment that had nothing to do with age. When Clover's body was laid on the pyre, Celestia and Luna stood to either side of it, presenting themselves to the crowd of ponies. Behind the founders were various entourages had behind them of all manner of mare, stallion, colt, and filly, and all of whom would have come to Everfree to pay their last respects. Not since the coronations of the 2 princesses had anyone seen in such a huge gathering of ponykind. Celestia exchanged a glance at Luna and nodded. She had suggested that Luna gave the eulogy, thinking that perhaps she had tended to make over public occasions. Luna opened her mouth to address the multitude, but before she could speak, a loud crackle of magic spit in the air, with an adverse popping sound at the flash of light. A figure appeared between the princesses and the crowd, with a long thick cloak that was flared out as stiff as the wind, and was the pony beneath, collated into gray fur, feathered the hooves, and extremely long beard. Celestia gasped. "Star Swirl? No pony had been able to find him to tell him of Clover's death. It had been assumed that he was out of the country on one of his spell-gathering quests. Evidently, the assumption was correct. Star Swirl turned, the bells that of his head jingling had he faced the princesses. Though half-mastered distance, but appear facing the wrong way? Celestia heard him mutter under his breath. "Could find magic not at least point thee in the right direction upon re-entry, old fart?" He had cleared his throat and spoke louder. "Princess Celestia, Princess Luna, dost thou truly believe I would fail to appear at my own student's funeral?" Celestia recovered first. "Our apologies for an oversight, Master Starswirl. We are gratified at thy attendance." She missed the translucent look Luna shot her before speaking in her place. "Indeed, though thy entrance be rather too dramatic for such a gloomy occasion, perhaps," she said cuttingly. Be a funeral a time of pure gloom, or a time to celebrate the life of the soul departed? Starsworld responded archly, but not with a hint of deference. Well, far be it the most powerful unicorn mage who had ever lived to be differential to any pony, Celestia supposed. But Starsworld was a unique among ponies, a flesh and blood replica for all the kinds magic, including those of other races and varieties. Most ponies thought of it as nothing more than pipe dreams. His search for a viable means of time travel was infamous and often used as a turn of phrase when a pony was thought to be doing something pointless and destined for failure. As well as the accident, cranky, and never short of something to say, Starswirl was famous for making enemies as spells, although Celestia had always liked him. He was the only pony other than Luna whom she had never discussed the elements of harmony, since he was the only pony who ever seemed to like he might be able to puzzle out what they really were. Unfortunately, he had not been able to shed any light on them, though Celestia had enjoyed their long conversations and finally being able to share stories of Canterlot, her long-dead family, and nearly dying in the caves. It was difficult to talk such things with any pony when maintaining the guise of impenetrable authority a princess should have. But Starsworld had never cared for such things, and his mind was sharp as a thorn bush. His personality was just as prickly. Luna glared at him. Apparently she had forgotten this particular suspect. Don't make it a fine point, Starswirl, Celestia chimed in quickly. Indeed, though we may grieve, so too should we celebrate the life of Clover the Clever and all of his achievements. Pray free, will it though grace us eulogy? If Luna's glare had been an angry one before, now it was venomous. She calmed her mask and slipped badly. Celestia averted her eyes, refusing to meet her sister's gaze. Now was not the time for pittiness, and she would not create a scene by telling Luna that she was being inappropriate. Starswirl turned the way he had been facing when Celestia, tried to remember the word Clover used when he described that what she presumed to spell to be. Tell us something? Teleportation. That was it. Starsworld had teleported into the ceremony. She had wondered how far away he could have been at the teleport himself through the walls or only open spaces. He had been in the crowds outside or in the castle grounds. He immediately chastised herself for being so curious of that, while the body of one another of her oldest friends lay so close. Clover the Clever was a precocious student, if a little tiresome, and apt to be sensible and practical when the situation called for daring, Starsworld began, sending murmurs through the crowd. This was not how they had expected Illogy to start. He was so gifted, perceptible, faithful, and more gentle than any me I ever been or ever will be. Starswirl paused when he went on a softer tone. He was my first and only true student I have taught in my long years. Some good, some so poor. I have torn out my beard with vexation at the idiocy. Only he of all could withstand the fickleness of my moods longer than a single waxing and waning of the moon. As a colt, his talents and thirst of learning did not impress me as such that I invited him to accompany me upon my travels. None of sense he have started on my hoof steps, and he did. His gift for magic likewise impressed me, as did his compassion and kindness. Many at the time that he did not stop up, despite my outcry, to help some pony who needed aid. Many at the time who he had risked my threats to leave him behind, because he knew there was a time of mind and a time for the heart. A lesson, I confess, struggle with still, though Clover was my faithful student. I also did learn much from him. Upon my oath, I do wish now that I had told him this. Star Swirl paused again, as if gathering himself. Clover the Clever was a student, teacher, questioner, defender of the weak founder of Equestria, and my friend. In truth, there shall be no other like him, and the world doth suffer greatly for his loss. Celestia's eyes prickled. When Star Swirl turned to face her and Luna questioningly, she nodded, giving him permission to light the prayer. Star Swirl's horn glowed as he levitated the torch, held by a servant, to the kindling below Clover's body. It lit quickly, and the flames climbed high, consuming the swaddled body in the matter of seconds. Rest well, Clover, my faithful student, Star Swirl said, so quietly that Celestia barely heard him over the roar of flames. I shall miss thee. She tried, but she couldn't prevent her own tears from falling. She had hoped that she would never have to go through such a painful experience as saying goodbye to a student this way. It was hard enough saying goodbye to a friend. The founding ponies at the front of the crowd and the ponies behind them said their final goodbyes and wept. Every pony was so absorbed in his or her own grief that the sight of the burning pyre, that no one focused on Princess Luna and her dried-eyed stare. Windracer wondered whether it was unhealthy to hate so many ponies at once for the way that they were treating Princess Luna. However, he was already nursing potent loathing of every pony in the Great Hall. He was on a regular duty tonight, and all of this really meant that there was two other Princess Luna's personal guards had been chosen to accompany her as she went about the castle, and he was supposed to go wherever Captain Diamond had told him to go. The captain, however, was distracted with dealing with the few guests that he had waylaid him. Windracer already stood ready at the end of the line of stallions in formal dress, each wearing a piece of black cloth around the foreleg to mark them as part of the funeral procession. He had been proud when Princess Luna chose him to march behind her and wore her insignia proudly, as if daring those in the Sun Princess's half of the procession to challenge him. Princess Celestia and Princess Luna stood before the assembled ponies. Princess Celestia's horn glowed a soft gold as she lowered the sun in the sky. As she worked, Princess Luna turned to address the guests. I shall now raise the moon and begin the night, she announced, though her sister had not made a similar announcement before beginning her magic. Princess Celestia had merely excused herself from the small group of ponies and gone to the window. Windracer watched in concentration as some of the gathered ponies turned to Princess Luna's announcement, but the majority paid her little mind. They were so busy talking with each other, breaking into cliques, and chatting about Clover the Clever, the funeral, Star Swirl, and the bearded's unexpected appearance. How well Princess Celestia had coped with him, seeing the founding ponies together, wondering which one of them would be next to go. Everything so topical, it seemed, except for the magic being enhanced before their very eyes. Apparently, they were so used to nightfall that not even seeing the pony who made it happen was enough to stir them from their socializing. Princess Luna scoured and announced again that she was going to begin the night. Windracer knew that the passing of day to night was complexly patterned throughout the year, happening at an extremely different minute, second, and eventually hour each time. The princess had adopted the pattern set by the unicorn mages of old, but refined it to so much degree that it boggled the mind of how any pony could think of such a minuscule detail so far into the future. To delay the rising moon for even a few minutes could wreck the schedule and throw off the pattern, making Luna wait for them. The ponies in the Great Hall were doing more damage than they realized. Windracer allowed his own features to contort into a scowl as the princess finally gave up and turned to the window. The sky darkened to an elegant dark blue, which seemed almost black against the rising moon. In short bursts like fireworks, stars flared to life. Princess Luna stepped away from the window, panting, and turned only to find her work still being ignored. One or two ponies stamped their hooves politely, but almost immediately went back to their conversations. Princess Celestia laid a wing over her sister and said something, but Princess Luna pulled away and walked a little distance from her. Princess Celestia watched her go with sad eyes, yawned, and called her bodyguards to her. "I must now take my leave of thee," she declared to the assembled ponies. "I bid thee good night, one and all." "Must thou leave?" asked a dozen ponies. "We did hope to speak with thee. Canst thou not stay a little longer?" Celestia shook her head. She tried to look tired through the regal bearing. Windracer knew, just like as Princess Luna, the weekend by daylight. So did Princess Celestia when the sun was gone from the sky. "I shall leave thee with my sister, but I must depart." With her guards escorted her from the room, amidst more pleading for her to stay. Princess Luna watched her go with undisguised bitterness. Her expression and the snappy, barbed way she had talked to them since the funeral made ponies avoid her now. Well, all but one, Princess Mane, trotted over and tried to engage her in a conversation, but it was clear that the princess was not listening. She gazed around the assembled ponies, and her expression growing darker and darker until it was positively thunderous. Without excusing herself, she abandoned Prince Goldenmane and stalked away down a side corridor, trailing her guards for the night. "Well, I never!" Windracer heard Prince Goldenmane exclaimed. "I was always taught that royalty is expected to maintain a certain level of condorum." Windracer snorted. "There was a reason Goldenmane and his mother were called Lesser Royals. The founding ponies' families were all Lesser Royals, if they chose to keep the titles, and their descendants would not inherit those titles too. But they would never be true royalty in Windracer's eyes." He wasn't sure what caught his attention. Maybe he just stooped ahead. Maybe it was the way she snuck in from the staircase to the royal chambers. Maybe he was just eyed to spot her out of suspicion. His eyes found in the hedge witch of the crowd and followed her as she moved through, clearly looking for some pony. She ducked away from the pair of stallion nobles who laughed and shoved their way to the maid table, narrowly avoiding being crushed by the routed mare in frock 2 sizes too small for her. The hedge witch swiveled its head away for a moment, but that clearly did not find who she was looking for. She bit her lip and stood still, but only for a moment. A loud stallion with a laugh of a braying donkey crashed right into her, knocking her against the mid table. The bowl of drink from which ponies were serving themselves sloshed dangerously, dumping some of its contents on her head as she scrambled to her hooves, ducking under the table and crawling to the end so she wasn't intercepted again. She ran for the door through, although she had just entered. The royal chambers? Apprehension wove a net around Windracer and pulled tight. Why would she go there unattended? Princess Luna was elsewhere. Why would her lover go to the rooms without her? Did she truly think that princesses would be there when the castle was filled with guests and her sister was nowhere to be seen? Since he was at the end of the row, it was easy enough for him to slip off. He used a little-known route. The same, in fact, he had used to sneak around the hedge witch back to her own quarters. When she had reached Princess Luna's chamber door was ajar, and he could hear the hoofsteps inside. Having mesmerized the sound of the princess' silvery shoes, he knew they wouldn't belong to her. He crept to the doorway, peering around it, bunching his formidable muscles under him. He leapt into the room, wings flared to make himself look as big and imitating as possible, spear thrust towards an inward attacking stance. "Don't move!" The hedge witch squeaked and fell backwards. As she did so, something fell from her hooves. Windracer reached out with a leg and, still holding his beak steady on her, dragged it towards him. It was a tiny packet which was made from parchment. Carefully clutching it at one hoof and using his wingtip to work up open the top. Inside were crushed leaves and other bits of the plant. It gave off a lemony smell that wasn't altogether unpleasant. Nevertheless, Windracer's brows knit together. "What is this?" The hedge witch gulped, round eyes fixated on the spearhead. "Answer, hedge witch," he barked. Her gaze instantly shifted to his face. "How does do you know of?" She swallowed, unable to focus on either him or the spear. "If I have hedge witchery, 'twas not a secret, unlike thy presence here tonight. Wherefore art thou within the princess's chamber uninvited? Art thou invited? Speak plain and truthful, else it shall go badly for thee." "I was not invited," she admitted. "I thought Luna—" "Speak not her name so casually, hedge witch. I will not trust thy intentions or thy deeds. Thou art entirely too familiar with highness. Who art thou to be so quickly be taken to her bed, wherefore she could see those of all kinds of ponies for such honor? Who art thou, mesmerize her eyes until they see no other, when thou art known to her for such a precious little time? Who art thou, to think thou might even look up upon the moon princess, much less touch her?" Thought he had intentionate. His voice rose a shout in several things he had not meant to spew forth. "Save thou art no one, a mare of notable birth, no status of no worth except up to each plows and weeds, and yet thou art the princess's chosen? I say nay. Something in these events and thee doth reek of witchcraft." The hedge witch stared at him, obviously terrified. "Nay, I mean no pony any harm. I only wish to find Princess Luna to speak with her, to ask her about, Involuntarily her eyes flicked to the packet in his hoof. "Thou didst sneak up to the chamber alone, while she doth attend to her guests, thinking to speak with her?" Windracer didn't even bother to invest his tone with much more conviction. "Thou liest, and not well, hedge witch." "My name is not hedge witch," she protested. "I care not for thy name. I care about the well-being and safety of the princess, and I do hold in my hoof what cognition hast thou brought to the princess's bedchamber without her knowledge?" His mind worked, coming to what he quickly decided was the only possible conclusion, and his eyes narrowed in disgust. "Be this poison? Seekest thou to poison the moon princess?" No, she protested, extremely unconvincingly. "Thou would make a pretty piece of sense," Windracer said with glowing conviction. "The swiftness of thy courtship, the speed of which thou didst seduce her highness, the strange illness that could afflict at the last time I discovered thee in thy company, and her strange illness was no physician knows the cure of, who's better to concoct poison that would may include their test than less than a hedge witch, and who better than to administer to the princess than her lover?" "No," the hedge witch cried. "Thou art wrong. 'Tis not the case. Thou art wrong." "I say nay." He made to crumple the packet, but it stopped. It would be needed as evidence. Whatever foul mixture she had made, the physicians would need to cure Princess Luna of that illness that had robbed her of such of her beauty. Windracer's heart swelled at the thought that he would have to be the one to save her. It would be the one pony out of every pony of Equestria who had saved Princess Luna's life twice over. Hedge witch, thou art hereby under arrest, under the order of the Royal Lunar Guard. Prithee come quietly, or else I'll have to use a spear upon thee." She gulped, eyes glassy with unshed tears. "I have done nothing. Not to her. I have done nothing." Thy denials do sound feeble. We shall see whether thou have done aught this night, or any others that come before during thy wicked seduction. I did not seduce her. She did not seduce thee, a commoner up to her fetlocks in a muck? A likely tale indeed. Her highness would not have wandered across any path had thou not placed thyself in her way. Nay, deny all you thou wish. I am not easily drawn to your fine lies, hedge witch. Voices outside made his ears pricked, and the hedge witch had heard them too, and her expression morphed into one of relief, which angered him all the more. Even now she had expected the princess to do her bidding. Even now, when the plans had been uncovered, she thought she could manipulate poor Princess Luna into doing her bidding, when she had probably just tried secretly to lay some sort of poison for her in her own bedchamber. Enraged at the hedge witch's audacity, his body seemed to tremble. Afterwards he could not be sure whether his muscles spasmed, or whether he deliberately thrust his spear towards a few inches. It was not a fatal wound, but entered the hedge witch's haunch, lodging it in the muscle. She cried out in pain and tried to back away, but all the wrenching spear from his grasp as she stumbled, pulling herself off to the point. "What was that?" asked one of the voices. "Remain here, Highness. Thy doors hangs open, and there are noises within." The two guards entered the bedchamber. Windracer recognized them both. Swiftwing gaped at the sight of them, and the weapon drawn, while the other stallion frowned in confusion. It was he who spoke first. "What is the meaning of this, sir?" "I did catch this pony attempting to poison her highness," Windracer said without preamble. "This pony?" Swiftwing didn't sound as though he believed in his story. Windracer scowled and held out the packet. "I did take this from her. 'Tis clearly doing some hedge witch condition she had to steal up here and use upon the princess." "What are these herbs, Mare?" Swiftwing asked, the hedge witch gasping in pain, and answered, I know not, good sir. I have no memory of this day save for the past half hour. I did wake outside Princess Celestia's study bearing these. They do smell of—" She shook her head. "I think they may have been bewitched." "A likely story," Windracer thundered. "Do not believe her, Swiftwing. I have told thee before of my suspicions concerning her. This be proof enough of her ill intentions. She doth mean to poison Princess Luna." "What?" As one, every pony looked around the door, where Princess Luna stood in apparent shock. She had stared at the scene, taking a Windracer, the spear, the hedge witch, and the two other guards. Finally her eyes settled on the little paper packet. She crossed the room and took it from Windracer, sniffing its contents. "Nay, Highness," Windracer protested. Princess Luna wrinkled her nose. "Bridal tears?" He sniffed again. "Canaponi, also rotten heliotrope, devil belldrop, blinding nettle, and it's to be crushed plants herein?" "I do not know," the hedge witch panted. "Please, Luna, I am hurt. Fetch a physician." "These plants are poison all," Luna said impassively. "Together even more potent blend. This hath thou brought to my chambers?" "Nay, I mean, yes, I did bring those herbs, but I did not know what they were, Luna. I have been bewitched, and my mind was not my own. I recall laying with thee, and when nothing until now, Clover the Clever hath perished, and I did not know until I have overheard ponies talk of it. Yet he hath been dead days. I do not know why I do not remember, nor do I have done in that time." "The words of a liar, Highness," Windracer snarled. "She seeks to do thee ill." He had then told her on how he thought the hedge witch was responsible for her long-standing illness. "'Twas not until she came to Everfree that thou didst suffer so. It cannot be a coincidence, not in so many ways." "Indeed, coincidence doth seems unlikely," she agreed. The hedge witch stared at her in disbelief. "Luna?" "I will thank thee to name me properly," said the princess. She raised her face and staring down at the confused bleeding mare haughtily. Hedge witch. Fear dawned on the hedge witch's eyes. Doas Kenneth did not believe these untruths. I have never met fee harm, nor done harm to any pony. I brought these packets because I was afeared, and I did not know where else to turn. I do not know why I have them, nor where they came from, but I do know how I would never use them to harm thee. I love thee, Luna. Quiet! The stallion, whose name Windracer could not remember, stepped forward menacingly. Clearly he did not believe in the hedge witch's lies, and it was just an incense in her own words. I do love thee, the hedge witch cried. With all my heart I do love thee. Please, Luna, do not forsake me this way. Princess Luna looked at the packet of poison in her hoof. Under the cloak she flexed her useless wings and winced. She seemed to have come to a decision. The penalty for attempted murder of Sovereign is death. This the law, plain and true. Nay, the hedge witch screamed. Luna! Yet I am not completely without mercy. Thou shalt stand trial for thy crimes. Windracer, Cirrus, take her to the West Tower, and hold her there. She shall remain within until such time as I may attend her case. The unnamed guard bowed low. Windracer copied the move, keeping his spear trained on the hedge witch, and in case she tried to run. Not that she would get far with an injured leg. Sniveling, she limped between them as she pressed on to her with their taller, armored bodies, in formation as they had been trained. Each Pegasus extended a wing over her with feathers spread, signaling to any pony they met that she was under arrest. Luna, please, do not do this! She tried one more time to appeal to the princess, who turned to watch her leave. I did trust thee, she said softly. I have faith in thee, yet doest thus betray that faith, and instead bring upon this thyself by coming here at this night. I betrayed nothing, the hedge witch replied brokenly. I came here because I trust thee also. I had faith that this help me understand what has happened to me. Princess Luna stared at her for a long tense moment. Then she turned away. Take her to the West Tower. After this night I shall decide whether she remains of use to my Equestria, and thus shall retain her life. After a moment's pause, however, she added, Swiftwing informed Captain Diamond to set guards to her prison and bring chains to bind her. Afterwards, all three of them should return here. Thou art to be left unguarded while we perform these tasks, Highness? Swiftwing asked, with an attempt to find life so recently vanquished. Mayhap thou art correct, Windracer. His whole body thrilled to hear her say his name. Yes, Highness? Remain herein. With Swiftwing, take his place, and thereupon seek out Captain Diamond. Are all orders clear? As Moonlight, Highness. Swiftwing bowed and switched with Windracer. Together they led the hedge witch away, still sniveling and bleeding from her wound. Thy spear remains bloody, Windracer, Princess Luna said mildly, once they had passed from her sight. It's not customary to clean once it's used, done? My apologies, Highness. He cast about. He had never actually used his spear on a living creature before, and he hadn't been born during the worst of the Griffin conflicts, and whilst training as a guard he had involved combat drills, more time had been given over to parade formalities, and the various ways he was to conduct himself amongst the royalty and lesser nobilities in the castle. This was the first time he had spilled actual blood. It didn't trouble him as much as he had thought it would. With that, shall I clean it? It matters not to me, Princess Luna said airily. Use the bed sheets. After this night, I shall have little use for them. Windracer assumed that she meant that she would want the whole room stripped and refurbished to remove any reminder of the betrayal she had suffered. I am sorry, Highness. Sorry? Wherefore? Though didn't seem to care much for the hedge witch. She had looked at the patch of blood on the floor, her face turned away from him. She had her uses, she said after a moment. I did hope to retain her services longer than this. A hedge witch is useful to keep mind around, since they do not share secrets with any but their own kind. Highness? Windracer was confused. Had the princess been using the hedge witch, even as the hedge witch thought she was using the princess? It hadn't even occurred to him. Princess Luna was intelligent as well as lovely. His admiration snuffed out any frustration he may have felt that his rescue of her was not, in fact, a rescue at all if she already knew the hedge witch was not all she seemed. Nor did she think less of her for using the earth pony as a simple bedmate. Kings and queens of ancient times had concubines, but didn't they? They all had forgive Princess Luna anything. She sniffed the air. She had done this selection of a month earlier, and she looked at him. 5 deeds this night prove 5 faithfulness, Windracer. Though did seek to defend me against any who would do me ill. 5 conduct since the evaluation to the Moon Guard have been exceptional. I would lay down my life for thee, Highness. Indeed, she would look at him thoughtfully. What else doest thou lay down for me? Highness, damn it, his wings were twitching. Maybe he should have taken Swiftwing's advice and found some saltpeter. What did she mean by that? Thy life is thy mine, Windracer. She then took a step towards him. Thy body also? Hope and disbelief tussled inside him. Surely she couldn't mean. No, it was too unlikely, and yet she had taken the hedge witch to her bed. Why not one of the guards? Why not a faithful stallion to wipe away the memory of a traitorous mare, Highness? Doest thou like my night, Windracer? He swallowed. I love it, Highness. Each one is beautiful. 'Tis the shame of other ponies do not appreciate it as they should. Thy answer pleases me, she advanced. Very much. What would thy devotion look like in the flesh, I wonder? She stopped in front of him. She smiled and asked, Shall we find out? Windracer opened his mouth to speak out, but didn't get the chance. Princess Luna's horn glowed, not when the bright light he was accustomed to. Dark magical energy swirled around it and around him. He grunted as the intense cold radiated outward from the center of his chest. His limbs became heavy, with his wings felt strange. Thy loyalty doth encourage me to make more fully of thee night, Princess Luna purred. Lust is such an unexpected callous. Thou art first, Windracer did not the last. Thy darkness devotion shall spread throughout thee and thy touch. Thou art my devote, my weapon and my champion. Her champion? He had tried to look at her, but all he could see was swirling, sparkling darkness, as if the sky had swallowed him and he was remaking him. His wings had ripped out and unraveled, feathers and bones dissolving into starshine. He had tried to scream but had no breath. Her new wings spared from the remains of the old. The world became sharper and his vision changed to a better suit in the dark. His mane and tail hardened, and his fur darkened to steely gray as his heart beat waves of cold through him. In one final burst, the cold swept through his mind, purifying his thoughts and leaving behind only icy certainty. Obey, Windracer, said Princess Luna. He stood, feeling strong and powerful. He flexed his new leathery wings, swiping experimentally with the barbs of the joints and tips. He bowed lower than he had ever done before. I hear thee and obey, my queen. She smiled and was full of sharp teeth. Her eyes flickered briefly, turquoise. Good boy.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Ms. Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.